Hello, today's video is going to be a little different. It's one stamp, multiple colors, and it's really some different techniques of how you can use multiple colors on one single stamp. So thanks so much for joining my YouTube channel today. My name is Karen Sliwinski. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I live in Akron, Ohio. I can't get that out today. So we're going to be not making a card today like we normally do, but I'm going to show you a bunch of cards. So we're going to do 6 different techniques of how you can have one stamp, multiple colors, and then I will show you the card that I made using that technique. So we'll turn the camera around and we'll get started with the very first technique. The first technique is going to be using sponge daubers, and we're going to be using these 3 colors. So Granny Apple Green, Coastal Cabana, and Azure Afternoon. And I'm going to be using the Kindest Expressions stamp set. I love this one. It's got some really big, bold sentiments. So we're going to be using Oh Happy Day. So I have the stamp mounted. And the first thing we're going to do is stamp our middle color, or ink our middle color, I should say. We're not going to stamp it yet. And I'm going to do this in Coastal Cabana. So these are sponge daubers, and I like to have one for each color, so I label them. So you're just going to dip it in your ink pad, and then I'm going to apply it to my stamp. And here, I'm going to put this here so you can see it more. So I'm going in the middle of my stamp, and I'm going all around the ink pad. I'm not just daubing in the same spot. And I'm just going to keep applying color. And you can kind of see it's a little bit harder on the red rubber stamps, but you are getting the ink on there. So then I'm going to switch to my Azure Afternoon, and we're going to put that on the bottom. This one's a little bit easier to tell that you're getting it, and I'm just I'm blending a lighter touch up as I get into my first color, and then I'm do Granny Apple Green on the top part. So I'm just dabbing on the ink color with the daubers. And you're going to have a little bit of blending where you've overlapped. So then when you're getting ready to stamp that down, so I have my circle, you're going to huff on this. So I'm going to bring it away from the camera a second. And I'm just going to breathe on it and then stamp that down on my circle. And then you can see you've got one stamp, but you've got all 3 colors, and they're just kind of blending into one another. I love some of these transitions. So depending on what colors you use, you may get some unsightly transitions, just because if you put like a purple and a yellow next to each other, the transition may not be pretty, but this looks lovely. So I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'll show you the card that I made with this one. And that's right here. It's nice and simple. And I do want to show a little trick. So here is the inside, and I used the Biggest Wish to do the happy birthday. And then there is my envelope. So for this one, I also decorated with these gems. These are called the Adhesive Back Glitter Sequins. They're really flat. They don't necessarily look like it, but this comes in the white or the kind of silvery, and then the Granny Apple Green and the Coastal Cabana, but it didn't have anything in the Azure Afternoon. So just a little trick, I took my blends and I just dotted on one of the white ones, and that gave me this Azure Afternoon one. So that was a fun little way to add a 3rd color. So that was our first technique. Move these out of the way. Now my second one is going to be using this same color palette. So we are going to be using the Year to Celebrate. This is a really fun one. It's good for the new year, but it's also great for birthdays or any celebration of any sort. And I have the Happy New Year. So that's got 3 words. So for this one, I'm going to start out with my Granny Apple Green. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to ink up just the happy and not the new year. All right, so I'm going to just carefully ink that up. And you can see that I have ink only on the happy. So I've got my piece of paper, and I'm going to stamp the happy down. Okay, so that looks great. Now, very important, you need to clean your stamp because you don't want any of that residual green on there. And then I'm going to take my Azure Afternoon. So I kept with the same color scheme as my first card. And this time I'm going to stamp or ink up just the word year. So I'm going to do it the same way. And just get ink on that word, year. I've got a little bit on the edge. I think I'll clean that off because I don't want a chance of messing that up on my card. So now I'm going to look through. I'm going to have to move it down a little bit so I see through the camera. I'm going to line up my happy and then press down my year. Oh, it looks like I messed up my R a little bit. So I'm going to just try to ink that part up and get it where I can see it. And let's see how good I can do. Not too bad. And then I'm going to clean that off. All right, so then we have to ink up our middle color. So this is where you're going to need the help of a Post-it. So I'm going to just grab my Post-it here. And we're going to use Coastal Cabana for the word new. So I'm going to cover up year, just like so. Okay, and then I'm going to ink up the word new, and you're going to get ink on that Post-it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Take off the Post-it. It's an important thing because I've done it before where I've kind of forgotten. And then we're just going to line up, here are these, and then there. So now I have all three words, and they're in different colors. Then I can trim that down, and that turned into this cute card. So I did all the little sprinkles all over as a background. Again, I colored my glitter sequins so that I could have some Azure Afternoon. But what a fun card. So this isn't a stamp, but this is sort of another way that you can get multiple colors on a word. So this is a die cut word. So for this one, I used my blending brushes and I blended from the Azure Afternoon to the Coastal Cabana and into the Granny Apple Green for my word. And that just kept this kind of whole scheme throughout. And it's a really good way to apply color with blending brushes instead of your daubers. Now, one thing I have learned is I cannot get as good of ink onto my stamps with my blending brushes as I can with daubers. It just seems these daubers seem to pick up more ink and deposit it on your stamp. So whenever I'm doing ink to my stamp, I use my daubers. But if I'm doing something where I'm going to die cut, I can use my blending brushes. So there is that cute card, and then I used my masking paper, so I blocked off part of my envelope and I just put my confetti of all three colors. So now we're on to our third technique. So for this one, I am going to switch my gears a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of those colors and I'm going to grab a couple more colors. So now I have a full range of green colors. All right, so Lemon Lime Twist, Granny, Apple Green, Garden Green, and Shaded Spruce. So I have this leaf stamp right here. This is from the Hello Ladybug stamp set. So it's this beautiful leaf. I'm not going to do anything with the ladybug. I'm just going to concentrate on my leaf. So I'm going to start out with my lightest color. You always want to go from light to darker when you're inking up your ink pad or your stamp set like this. So I'm going to load it up with my Granny Apple Green. Then I'm going to pull up, Lemon Lime Twist. Now I'm pulling up my Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to use my sponge dauber and just dab on some color. And I'm kind of doing it where the veins are in this one. You could do it any way you want. Sometimes I do it around the edge, but I'm applying little bits of color. You can't see a whole lot of difference from these two greens, but you just keep daubing. And then we might want to switch and add a little bit more depth. So now I've got my garden green. And that's why it's very handy to label your daubers, because, I mean, really, can you tell the difference between those? It's very hard to tell. And so I'm going to just put a little bit at the edges. All right. And then again, just like we did earlier, I'm going to huff on it so you get your moist breath on it. And then you can stamp. And really give it a good firm press to transfer those colors. And then you get all the beautiful colors there. Now, if you wanted to, like, you could clean it off like I did. And I'm going to show you what I did in the other minute here. This time I'm going to start with a darker shade, and I'm going to go with my garden green and adding quite a bit more color than this first one. So I'm going all around the edges, and then I'm going to pull in that darkest shade, which is the shaded spruce. So I'll get that one out here. And I'm going to do definitely the stem and just little bits here or there. All right, again, we are going to huff on it. And then I'm going to stamp that right there. And so then you'll see this one is a much darker one. And I really love how this one turned out. So I'm going to close up those ink pads. And then I'm going to show you the card I made. So this is a really cute and kind of whimsical stamp set. But I fussy cut these out. And I made a lovely sympathy card here. So thinking of you, I just did them in 4 different variations and fussy cut them out. Very, very simple card with a little bit of linen thread. And then I did another one just plain in the lemon lime twist with my words on it, with comfort and love. And then I stamped the same thing on my envelope. So isn't that a really fun technique? I love that one. All right, get these out of the way. So my next technique is, actually I've got 2 for this next card. So for this one, I have the Share a Milkshake set. All right, and I made a really cute ice cream cone with this, and then I'm going to use this as my label. So we're going to start with our pecan pie, and I'm going to stamp my saying in pecan pie on my circle. Okay, so that looks good. And then I'm going to clean off my stamp. And I've got some real red here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to stamp it again. And I've got a scrap. And this time I don't really care about the whole thing. I just want my cherry. All right, so then what we do is we take our scissors and we're going to fussy cut out the word cherry. I'll see if I can do that really fast here. And I am keeping it fairly close to the word. All right. Okay, so we don't need that. And then I'm going to grab my mini dimensionals. Okay, and we're just going to put a couple of them on the back of this word. Okay, and then we'll pop that up on top so it gives emphasis to the word cherry. So that just goes right on top. So you could have used your Post-it note and blocked this off, but this, since it was in the middle, this is an easier way to do that. So then I wanted to show you the fifth technique, and where's my little cherry? We are going to use Stampin' Up markers. So this cherry is going to be red, and I want the stem to be brown. I don't want it to be red. So I've inked up just the cherry part. Then you take your Stampin' Up marker. So mine is rolling away from me. And you're going to use this brush tip. And you're just going to apply color. Now you can use Stampin' Up markers to color any line images. I find that I really like the inking that you get better when you use a stamp pad, but you can color images with your Stampin' Up marker. So I'm going to just stamp my cherry, and there I've got two tones with the same stamp. And then you can just use the dies and you can cut that out. And let me move that out of the way. This is the adorable card that I made with that. So here's where I cut out my cherry, or the word cherry, and then I cut out my real cherry to put it inside my ice cream cone. And I love how this came out. And then I'll show you the inside. It's just celebrate. And I've got some hearts going down the side for my envelope. All right, we have one more technique. I'm going to move these stamp pads out of the way. So for this last one, I'm going to be using the Good Feelings. It's another great big stamp set with lots of big words. So we're going to be using this one here. And for this one, we want to start out, and we're going to use Daffodil Delight. All right, and we're going to ink this whole stamp up with Daffodil Delight. And then, okay, so that's now inked up in Daffodil Delight. I've got my Berry Burst. So here I'm going to ink up, and I'm not really moving, and I'm just applying ink. I'm going to have a very hard line where that crosses over. And then I've got Azure Afternoon for the bottom. So I'm going to turn my stamp around, and I'm just going to do it kind of at the same angle. I'm going to apply that down. Okay. Close that up. And then I'm going to get a little huff, and I'm going to stamp it right on my piece right here. And there is another way. So this is a little different from when we used our Daubers, because with the Daubers, we got a very soft blended line between the two colors. And then I thought what's also interesting is that the color changes because we're applying blue on top of the yellow. So this really is a green color rather than the Azure Afternoon. And then our Berry Burst went sort of this orangey red. So that's really fun. You will get a little bit of the ink from what we first stamped, so the yellow. We do get a little bit of that left on our ink pad. In fact, if I open this up, I think you'll see it just a little bit there. But because we started with our lightest color and worked into it, it is fine. In fact, I'm just going to, blend out my ink. You will never notice that there was ever any yellow there. So that's why you'll start with your lightest color and then go to your darkest. So the card that I made for that one is right here, and I used the rays of light to do this beautiful background on it. Added a few little dots, and then You're in My Thoughts with a little bit of that lovely gingham ribbon that I love, and Hello Friend. So there you have it. There are 6 different techniques that I showed you for one stamp, multiple colors. I will have links to all of the products that I use to make all of these cards. So there's going to be a lot of links in my YouTube description of the video, as well as my blog, which is ThePowerOfACard.blogspot.com. Thank you so much for watching. If I can help you in any way with any of your stamping needs, please contact me. I'll have all the ways that you can contact me in my descriptions and in my blog. And I will invite you to leave your comments. Tell me which is your favorite technique, which one do you want to do, and let me know which is your favorite card. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.